Okay, so here we are today, our second webinar, not presentation, webinar and conversation. We hope to engage all of you in discussion and kind of move away from that presentation model where we're talking, but more of a sort of reciprocal exchange of ideas and information. And so I'll go here to the next slide. Our focus today is relationships matter, connecting with ELs and their families. And we do want to thank OFE for supporting us in this work, and for Lisa as our facilitator, and Charlotte and Anastasia and I are really excited to hear what you all have to share with us today. Lisa, I think this is you.
So a hearty welcome to Emily and Jana and Stacy. Thanks for tuning in this afternoon. You know, we like Margaret Wheatley believe that we can change the world. We can change it if we start listening to one another again through simple, honest human conversation, not mediation or negotiation, problem solving, debate, or public meetings. We've all been involved in those all day long, probably. But through simple, truthful conversation where we each have a chance to speak, we each feel free to be heard, and we each listen well. So we invite you to turn your cameras on, keep your microphones muted until we start the conversation. And we're just so very, very happy that you are here with us today. Welcome.
All right, I'm Charlotte Jones, and just a little housekeeping. It'd be nice if you kept your browser on. We're going to do a little Padlet exercise and some other sharing today. I am a facilitator for the OFE project, EL project, and a longtime educator. I've been a principal, a teacher, worked with K-20 and worked with a lot of other projects throughout my years, and I am thrilled to be part of this one. I think we are making such a difference in our state, and our hopes when we started this project was that we would have a professional learning community online, a professional community that would be able to support one another. And when I started working with the facilitators of the project, I realized how much they hungered for that. They really wanted to connect with other ELs and teachers around the state. And so we are really glad that you are here today. Anastasia and Ellen, if you two, one after the other, will start introducing yourselves, then Emily and Jana and Stacy, if you will then follow. We'll just introduce ourselves by saying kind of, well, first of all, just telling where we teach and how many ELs we maybe serve or what our position is. And then the other thing is just tell us what you hope to gain from today when you signed up for this. Anastasia, you want to start?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Anastasia. I am an EL specialist in Stillwater. I'm currently serving at the middle school, and I have about 38 EL students that are traditional learning and some virtual learning that I work with daily. And this is a very different year, obviously, for everybody. And so these are like pretty low numbers, especially compared to last year. So I've had some time to really work on some other things during this year to better myself, to learn more. And one of those things is really to try to connect with other EL teachers around our state, and teachers who have EL students so that we could just connect, that I could help have those conversations, meet with them virtually. And so even today, I hope to meet a few more to have those kind of conversations with and support one another.
Oh, is it me? It's me.
That's you.
Okay. I'm Ellen Kraft. I'm an EL teacher for Norman Public Schools here at Truman primary. I teach the littles, so I have pre-K through second grade. Truman's kind of a unique setup in Norman. It's the only elementary school that has 2 campuses.
Hey, I'm just calling to let
Oh,
you guys
sorry.
know dinner is ready. If
It's
you
also
are-
parent conference night, so dinner's in the lounge. So they just announced. I wonder what it is. It's always great. We have a great PTA. Like I said, only elementary school here in Norman that has 2 campuses. We kind of ran out of room at one point, so I serve the pre-K through second, and we have a 3 through 5 EL teacher at the other building. I have about 60 kids this year. Like Anastasia said, numbers have been different. Several kids are virtual. Many of those students have started to return to in-person instruction, which has created some interesting obstacles. Nothing that we can't tackle, but like Anastasia said, my hope for this is to, I always say, grow our circle. There's a lot of work to be done in this field, not just in serving our kids in the classroom, but at the state level, at the policy level. So growing our circle, I think our voice is stronger. I can't wait to hear how you connect with your students. And I hope to learn from you all. Like Anastasia said, this has been a great year to learn. We're teachers, we're also lifelong learners. That process never stops. And so I look forward to this conversation today and the 2 more conversations that we have remaining. And I hope that we, like I said, continue to grow our circle and become a voice for our field.
Thank you, Ellen. Emily, are you on?
I am, yeah.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Now we can see you. Thank you for that.
Okay,
No.
perfect. Let me just get situated. Okay, I'm here. All right. So I'm teaching at College Bound Academy, which is a K-4 charter school in Tulsa.
Uh-huh.
Currently, we're in the process of switching over to in-person. We're on spring break this coming up week, and then we have 1 more week of professional development, staff trainings and stuff, and we start the first week of April with some half days, and then the week after we go full blown right at it. Currently I'm serving our kindergarten, first and second grade students. And I've done that virtually up until end of January when I started access testing. So had kiddos come in and had that 2-week span where we didn't have school. So that kind of put, everyone on a little hold, but back at it and just finished today. So yeah, so minus a few, about 10 students that need to do makeups, but we're going to pull them once we're back to in person. So that's where we're at. And I'm here just because I love kind of hearing different individuals, just stories and their connections with EL students and collaborating and kind of bringing it back to the staff that I have here and taking everything and using it in my own classroom. So I'm looking forward to these chunk of different PD series.
Absolutely. Emily, thank you and welcome. We
Thank
hope
you.
you'll stay connected with us in the future. Jana, I think you're next. Can we see you?
I apologize. I'm working from home and I did not know you guys wanted to see me, but I promise you next time I will be ready for you to see me.
Well, we'll hear you. How's that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
But my name is Jana Korn and I am the director of the English Language Proficiency Assessment Indicator at the State Department of Education. I was a EL high school teacher in New Jersey for 10 years. And I also taught at Grant here in Oklahoma City. And I also taught at the Center for English as a Second Language at OU for 5 years before coming here. I've also done some adult ed and community college ESL as well. But I'm here today because number one, I was curious about your attendance because I just had a PD session. I think Emily was in my PD session, but the attendance wasn't so great. And I was just curious if is it the off year, all the stuff that's going on, what's going on. So I was curious to check out your attendance. Also, my executive director asked me to be the OSD representative here. So there you go.
All right. Jana, we're really glad to see you today. And also, I want to tell you, we had over 10 people signed up. Well, actually 12 with all of us. We had a little mix up getting in today. And I think that's maybe taken a toll on it. So we are apologizing for that, but we are really glad that you and Emily are here. And Stacy's here too. Stacy, can you let us see you or hear from you? Stacy Treadway, are you here? There you are. You're on mute though. Yeah.
All right, I'm on my phone because I'll be traveling here pretty soon.
All right.
My background, I'm actually was a certified reading specialist.
Uh-huh.
And so when all this happened, I've been, for the past few years, been working as a private tutor and predominantly with English language learners families. And my little nephew is an English language learner because he is Guatemalan. So I've just been trying to, and I just took a position working with some ELLs and stuff too. So I'm just trying to kind of make sure I'm up on what I need to know and all that stuff. So that's why I kind of joined this.
Stacy, I missed where you're joining us from.
Oh, I'm in Blanchard right now.
Blanchard.
Yeah.
Is that where you teach?
No, I teach. I just started with Epic, and
Okay,
I've been working as a private tutor before that.
perfect.
Super, super. Now I'm going to double check and make sure no one else has come in. I believe this is all of us. Is that right? Okay. All right. So I want to start by telling a story. In my career, I mentioned that I had been a former principal, and I started that job in 1994 in a school in Madison at Norman, here in Norman, called Madison Elementary. Madison's in the southeast part of Norman. At the time that I started there, we had a lot of housing. In fact, primarily all the housing for the married students that were coming from out of the country. And so we had a large EL population. We had a large apartment population of just low income also families. And then a new housing addition it was new startup for small families that didn't have a lot of money too. So we were very, very mixed in our clientele, but a large EL population. We'd usually have from year to year as many as 28 different languages spoken in the building. And so when I got there, I was a bit surprised. I was glad to be there, but I was a bit surprised that the teachers still were of the mind frame that you are from out of the country as a student and family, and you just need to conform to what we have going on here because you're in the United States. And so we're going to teach English and it's going to be done our way. And there wasn't a lot of openness to learning a lot about the other cultures and families. So we did a lot of things. We decided to add music from around the world to our music program and dances in our PE program from around the world. We had a multicultural fair. We also decided to have an English class in our library. And we actually asked parents to come in and volunteer to be helpers around the school so they could have opportunity to have language exchanges with us. So we thought we were really doing well. We had lots of conversations about how we could better serve our students. But I had an incident, an interesting situation that happened to me. And I'd been there, it was about my 4th year there. A lady came in, a mom came in to talk to me, and she said, We are getting ready to move. We've been in your school now for almost 3 years. And our son has been here and he's had a really good experience. And we're getting ready to move to another city in the state because my husband's just graduated from engineering at OU. And for the first time, we'll be able to have a home. And my son, I don't know if you know Mrs. Jones, but we moved here with just their clothes on our backs. And he brought one toy with him, one toy. And I knew her son. I remembered her son clearly, and I'd watched her son grow. But the way I remembered him was he was the little boy in the pink coat. He wore always a little pink coat on the playground, and as the years went by, that coat got shorter and shorter in length. I thought that was interesting, and I never really questioned families and the way they dressed their children. There were a lot of unique ways that we all came to school from our group of diverse people and cultures. And so I never questioned. But then I said to her, "Did you have clothing? I remember your son wore a pink coat." And she said, "No, that was the only coat that he had, or he still has." I was completely internally upset and dismayed because we have in Norman a wonderful program where we have businesses that donate clothing. We have a school bell program, and the counselor hands out every year a paper for the parents to fill out to get their child on the bus to go and be fitted for a whole new set of clothing, including shoes, and enough clothing with coats and shirts and pants to last them throughout the school year. I was devastated, and I apologized profusely that she didn't realize there had been the school bell program. And I wondered, how could that be? How could someone be in our school this long? They were a very clean family, well-kept family. The son was a bright student. That wasn't the problem. Now, I want you to think about that as we continue on. We're going to have some questions today. But I began to question, and I asked her, because we need to understand the power of questions. And this was brought to me more vividly a couple of days ago when I heard Johanna Hayes, the 2016 Teacher of the Year from Connecticut, who is now U.S. Representative from Connecticut, talk about the power of questions, how we don't ask enough questions of our students to really get to know them. And she said in their school, they were teaching the parents to be advocates for their students. We hadn't taught this parent to be an advocate for her student. We hadn't asked enough questions. And all the things we had put into place, those things were left out, I believe. We had to do a lot of school-wide reflection after this incident. Johanna went on to say that she began, I had an aide that was hired, or we hired, from India. We had a PE teacher from Brazil. But she also went further in her work, and she was careful to nurture even the custodian, the aides, and eventually encouraged them to become teachers so that there could be more teacher diversity within the school that she worked in. And I thought, how often do we do that? Do we really nurture those people who are from year to year the aides in the EL program so that they could go and get their certification? So anyway, I just want to leave you with that, something to ponder versus all of us giving our own personal answers. And I'm going to turn the next section over to Ellen and to Anastasia. And I think Stacy Treadway is here now. Stacy, you still here? It just dinged on.
And I think Claudia Smith has just joined.
Oh, good. Claudia, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Claudia,
Sorry, I'm late.
that's okay. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us what school you're in and the number of EL students that you serve, or if you do or do not, and what you hope to gain from today.
I actually am the Director of Federal Programs at Sandy Springs Public Schools.
Uh-huh.
And I don't really head up the EL portion. I just try to listen in on some of this stuff to learn more. We actually have an EL coordinator, Steve Perdue, and actually Sean Beard helps with that. So I'm just trying to pick up some additional information. So I am not the authority here. Sure, I'm learning, but I believe we have around 60 EL students.
Super.
So thanks.
None of us are the perfect expert either. We're all learning, and our big hopes in this project were that we would become a professional learning community that gets together regularly, shares ideas, and learn from one another, and bring new things to the table. Okay, so Ellen and Anastasia.
I'm actually going to turn it over to Lisa here in just a moment. She's created a Zoom poll. I have never done a Zoom poll before. I'm really excited about this. I'm going to share this next slide with you because the questions that you'll find in the Zoom poll are the questions that were sent out with the registration to kind of get you thinking about these ideas of connecting with families and students and what this looks like where you're at. What are we missing in our attempts to connect with EL students and their families? So just a range of topics and questions related to that larger question. So Lisa's going to create or share the poll. You're going to select your top three. And then after we do that, we'll talk about those questions. And then we have a couple of things to share before we try to address these questions individually and then come back and discuss them via Padlet. So we'll talk more about that when we get to that place. But for now, if you will take a couple of minutes here to participate in the Zoom poll. This is my first time. I'm excited about it. Everybody can see the Zoom poll? Okay, so if you'll just take a couple of seconds to select up to 3 questions from the 9 that you should see.
Okay, Ellen, votes are starting to come in.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
Yeah, they're starting to come in. Yeah.
So Lisa, if you'll share the results with me, I'll make adjustments to our Padlet and then
I have to share with everyone at once.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yep. So I think that everyone's probably selected. So yes, I have 6 of 7 have voted. So I'm going to end the poll and I will share the results.
How exciting. Okay, we've got 50%. How would you describe relationships, connections in your school? That's a good one. I'm writing this down.
Yeah.
And then if I'm not mistaken,
I think we have 3 that are at 50%.
okay.
You already did the first one, yep. And then
What is often missing when we say we're connecting with EL students and families?
Okay, good one.
And then what does our engagement or connection look like to the parent versus the school?
Okay, so start thinking about those things. Anastasia, do you have share screen capability or do you want me just to go to the next slide?
Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
So as we're going to talk about these questions, the first thing I wanted to share with you is my very first year of teaching. I was actually teaching and we had a PLC. So we met with my team of teachers every week. And we were having, all the teachers in this team, we were having a little bit of trouble with a particular student. He had a lot of misbehaviors. We could not figure him out. All the teachers, we didn't know what to do. And the principal came to us and said, okay, what do you guys know about the student? And we all sat there thinking, and well, we know his name, we know, his grade. And somebody said, well, he likes to wear funny shirts. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. He wears, those colorful, bright shirts, and they always have something clever on it. And she said, no. What do you know about him? What does he like? What is his interest? What is his home life like? We could not answer any of these questions. And that has stuck with me now 12 years later. If you don't know your student, how can you teach them? How can you reach them? And so something I have come across many times over the years is it's sometimes called like an EL profile, a student inventory. But I have created this for teachers, and this document is available to you guys as well, so that you can edit and make your own, or fill this in for your students. But this would give you some basic information, well, not even basic, a little bit more than basic, information about students, so that you can better know them and connect with them. Some of the things that are included, we need to know their English proficiency level. That will help us know how to teach them. But also about their home language. If the student can read or write in their native language, that could be a really helpful tool when we go to teach them, to know if they, are literate in their first language. Background, this is so important. Knowing if they were born in another country or if they're born in the United States. Oftentimes we get that wrong. Assumptions are made. And, we really want to know. So again, asking those questions, especially trauma, that can hinder education and hinder learning so much. And it's important to know if students have experienced trauma, and maybe that's the reason they shut down, or that's the reason they might not have resources, but we don't know until we ask those questions and kind of get that information. What are the students' interests and goals? I often throw in topics about what they like. I've been listening to ranchera music all week because that's what my student likes. So asking more questions, getting to know them. Family background, who does a student live with? Educational experiences, when they first came to US schools, what style of learning do they work best? What services do they receive? As in, do they need special education as well? Do they need, any other services outside of EL? And have they had any interruptions in schooling? And then this is kind of a personal reflection right here. How can I connect with the student? So looking back on yourself is like, okay, I know their interests. I know where, this information, how can I personally, as their teacher, connect with this student? And so I just recommend this tool to help get some information about students. And then I do have to say, I entered in this little this icon, so that we can hopefully record the student saying their name so that we can practice saying it right, because nothing talks more about identity of a student than getting their name right. And so I thought that was cool, because we have really cool tech features. So we could add in some audio there to make sure that we are calling the student by their name correctly and what they want to be called. And so this tool will be available to you guys as a document.
Thank you, Anastasia. I added this to the Padlet, so it's there along with your takeaway. I called it a takeaway tile, and we can share that in a minute too. So the next part of this discussion is not that, it's this. If you have not used Padlet as a tool, I'm a big fan. My students like it. I create a couple of these with resources that my teachers can use at school. And it's linked on our library page, so they can go onto our Truman Primary's library and pull up Miss Craft's Padlet, and it's here. I'm going to post a link to this Padlet in the chat box in just a moment. In this Padlet is a list of those 9 questions. We're going to only address the 3 that we selected via our Zoom poll today. These questions that we weren't able to get to today will remain here, along with a tab for printables, takeaways. The document that Anastasia just shared is also there that you can access later on. We're going to post this on the platform, and I would encourage you check it every once and add to it later. We're hoping to engage the folks that couldn't join us today in this conversation through this. So if you will open another browser, I am going to hopefully, well, let's see, give me just 2 seconds here. This didn't work like I wanted it to. Okay, so in the chat box, here we go. The link is there. So we're going to try talking about one question at a time. And so let's do the first one. How would you describe the connections and relationships in your schools? It's the second question in the Padlet tab. I wasn't able to move those around, Anastasia, because I was screen sharing. So they're there. I think you'll find it. Just click the link, take 2 or 3 minutes max, type in some ideas there. Just what first thing that comes to mind in answering this question, and then we'll come back together in just a moment and we'll kind of explore those thoughts a little bit deeper, because I'm really interested to know what this looks like at your site. So I'm going to add my thoughts. Anybody have trouble accessing the Padlet? Okay. Okay, let's come back if you can to the Zoom session. I like this one here. Parent engagement, communication in the home. Well, that's because I put this one. We have a huge digital divide. If that has not become completely obvious through virtual learning, it's something that we have to address. For me at my site, and I think across Norman, just coming to a place where we realize that not all folks are digital communicators, and we lose people and we lose those opportunities to connect if we think that everybody's going to connect via email. So for me, I think it's still important to send notes home, like old school notes in your backpack. That's one way that we connect and really create those relationships.
Which that reminds me, sending notes, and kind of the virtual side of that is because email does not work with most of our EL families either at my school. And I have been encouraging teachers to use an app called Talking Points. because it can translate into over 100 different languages, announcements and notes and messages. And so I have teachers send parents that, and it shows up on their phone as a text message, and it does all the translating for us. And so when they want to connect with a parent through a message, they can do that with this free app, Talking Points. And so that's one way we do that.
I love that. Who wrote about creating a home-based class?
That was me. We have a home base class, and that class stays the same all year, because at the middle school we have 7 different classes. The students are learning how to transition between classrooms, and classes change by semester, but our home based class is year long, and that is our group of kids where the teachers can really try to advocate and get to know those kids and do fun activities. Yeah, and so we do a home base class. It's kind of like a home room. It's the one constant class, even though everything else might change throughout the year.
Okay, I like that. Here's another one that I thought was really interesting. I want to know more about who's doing this because I want to do it. Make a special open house night.
Oh yeah, that was me. So at my old school, we
Tell me
had,
more.
yeah, so we had an open house for parents, and we kind of displayed student artwork, and we kind of, our parents were allowed to come in the classrooms and see student work, check out their student desks, because desks are a big deal when it comes to kiddos. And this is my book, this is my locker. So kind of just that sense of like belonging and having parents there with their students, or with their child, I should say. So I really thought that was a neat idea. And like I said, they had artwork displayed in the hall, and they had refreshment. So it was more so just of a night of like connecting and collaboration.
I so miss that, like parents in the building. Like I was telling Lisa earlier today, tonight is spring conferences. It's usually my favorite time of the year because it's student led. So they all have their little portfolios and they're so proud of their work, and it's not the same on Zoom. It's not the same on Zoom. Not the same. Somebody else wrote, where was that? Was a good one. Kind of a different take on it. Oh, here it is. It's kind of like, how do we, families on the other hand need to understand that collaboration in education in the US is expected. Whoever wrote that, I'm interested to know how are you changing that paradigm shift with your families to let them know that they are in fact a part of this and not meant to be on the sidelines?
So I wrote that statement. This is Jana. And when I was teaching in high school, I would always, when I met parents, kind of let them know that because I know that in a lot of cultures, teachers are the final authority, and it's considered kind of rude or disrespectful when parents kind of question or intervene in that. So it's really important to kind of just let them know, hey, in the US, we like to have collaboration, and how did I do it? I guess I did it during parents' night, or if I had to make phone calls home. And honestly, like when I taught high school, that was kind of back before we had all these translation apps and whatnot that we have now. Otherwise, I totally would have taken advantage of that as well. But I think it's important to understand that cultural difference and to kind of educate our families on that as well.
Yeah, I agree. Should we move on to the next question? Okay, so you're going to go back to your Padlet and we're going to do the next question. What is often missing when we say connecting with EL students and families? Like what's missing from that equation, from that conversation? Okay, in the interest of time, let's do this next question.
Yeah, I'm seeing some really good
Yeah.
comments on here. One put resources and community outreach.
Mhm.
I love that community outreach. And was just talking to someone yesterday about that and what a school was doing. They made a partnership with a church who would mentor and tutor the students. So I don't know, whoever put that one, do you have any community outreach that your school is doing, or that's really the missing piece right now?
Sorry. Yeah. So again, at my old school, we had, with being 2 years into the school I taught at before, it really took me just like asking what resources were out there for individuals, because I taught adult education at the time, and they would come to me with DHS questions I didn't know, so I'd go to my boss and ask. So kind of just understanding that there are resources out there, and it could be presented to our students with pamphlets that in the 100 different languages and stuff like that. So I guess just becoming familiar and asking questions, and if information, kind of spreading it out to people that could use the resources as well. So kind of just becoming familiar with different things that are out there.
Okay, I want to talk about this one because as a parent, this is something that I appreciate. It's contacting families only when there's a problem instead of contacting families to say something positive. Not that my kid is a problem, but I at my school we do positive principal referrals. And so, back in the day, the principal didn't call home unless there was something really not right. And so she created a program here where teachers could refer students for a positive referral, and they go to her office and it's a big thing. She gets the parent or the grown-up on speakerphone and just brags on those kids, and you should see their little faces light up. And we're lucky at my site. I speak Spanish, and we have other teachers here that can also help with that, so that language barrier doesn't get in the way of that celebration. I wonder who else has had experience with that? Who added that comment?
I didn't add the comment, but I've had an assistant principal ask me, because I am bilingual, to look over. He wanted to translate the certificate that he was going to send home with the student for like being a VIP for the week, a student of the week. And he wanted to make sure the parents knew of that award and said, hey, can we translate this into Spanish so the parents know what happened at school today? And that was, really meaningful to me. I was so glad that he asked, and how nice for the parent to be included and know what was going on, instead of, not knowing what this paper was. They could clearly read it because it was in their language.
Love it. Does anybody have anything else they want to share on that point before we quickly move to the last of the 3 questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was me who added that comment. I
Please
couldn't
expand.
unmute myself. Well, similarly to, I don't know who said it, but I mean, my daughter was a bad kid. And I
No
used to
bad
get,
kids, bad choices only.
yeah, well, it's my daughter, so I know. Anyway, she used to get I used to get a lot of calls about her, but my daughter was a great student, just behaviorally not so much. And I'm like, why don't they like ever call and say, oh, your daughter has straight A's, or, so, and I also do not like, I learned as a lesson, when you have a student where you constantly have to call home with negative stuff, you can hear that dread in the parent's voice. And honestly, they, at a certain point, they don't want to be bothered with it anymore. So I think it's really good if you want to maintain that relationship where you can call the parents and approach them with issues, you've got to also reinforce it with the positive. I mean, there's something positive about almost every kid. So we need to share that. I mean, they're parents. They love their kids. They want to hear good things about their kids.
Our former superintendent here in Norman, Joe Sayano, if anybody knows, he would say, you know what? These parents are sending their very best. And that has always stuck with me, and they're doing their very best. So yes, you're speaking my language. All right, let's move on to the last one. And I think, this is a good one. What does our engagement or connection look like to the parent versus the school? Mhm. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one real quick because I've been doing some research into different models of instruction during COVID and reading different teacher blogs from around the country. And this has come up a lot, especially as we are teaching virtually, blended, hybrid, the whole 9 yards. Somebody added the comment that says engagement might mean extra responsibilities to already overworked parents, multiple jobs, family, and responsibilities, but you could also flip that. And it might be perceived as extra work for the educator. Whoever wrote this, will you expand on your idea?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I have to expand so much.
I like it.
But I want to get my comment on there so I can be heard. But so sometime I have in the past had parents that they work multiple jobs and they have, a few children, and they just sometimes just are kind of overwhelmed by the engagement aspect. And like I said, like in some cultures, that's just unheard of. And so I think, again, it kind of goes back to kind of educating the parents about the cultural expectations in the United States. But I do know that sometimes for some families, it could be a little overwhelming.
That's a good point. Oh, I just refreshed. Where do we go?
I know one thing that we have done in the past, maybe to try to help with that. We used to have an ELL night at a local children's museum in town. And so we had activities it was just EL families that were invited. And there were some volunteers and the teachers there to kind of help walk them through some activities to practice English, but we also provided dinner. We had a community partner provide pizza. So the kids got to eat, the families got to eat, and the whole family could come. So siblings, we had babies and strollers, we had grandpas coming in with their kids. So it was, a family event. So I think trying to include the families, it was pretty informal, providing dinner.
Yeah. Hey, when there is food, they will come.
I will come for food.
That is essential. For
Childcare and food are the two biggest things with a lot of cultures that they need childcare, or the kids need to be, part of it. And food, providing those two things, I think is a pretty sure way to get more bodies,
I'll show up for pizza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that might help, make it a less overwhelming. Oh, I don't have to cook. Okay, let's go. We'll feed all the kids. Get them in the car. Let's go. Yeah, so that is something we could do.
Just really quickly, like when I mentioned that comment, I mean, I was teaching high school way, obviously like way before COVID. And I'm sure the engagement has increased tremendously since COVID and remote learning and hybrid learning. So I mean, I didn't even think of that until just now.
Okay, somebody wrote something here, and maybe you weren't going in this direction, but I want to bring it up. I just got off a diversity council meeting for Norman Public Schools, and this question really has me thinking of something about our front doors lack the representation of culture within our schools from the front door down to the classroom. We had a conversation about the lack of diversity in. Is everybody still there?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mine did a weird chime. Just the lack of diversity in teachers. Like if you walk into most schools, and certainly not across the board, but I mean, if you walk in the hallway at my school or at many of the schools in Norman, it's white women. And so that when I read that comment, that's the kind of the first thing that came to mind. Who added that?
I did, because we've had some change in administration, and they added a building and they repainted walls, and we just finished like with a bond plan. So they have redone a lot of things, and so everything kind of went back to being blank. And, at one point we had different culture flags up and out, and we had signs in different languages, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And so, if now, of course, COVID is different. Right now, we don't have any visitors allowed in our building, but when that time comes again, if we want it to be welcoming, having the welcome sign in, multiple languages. I have one actually sitting in my room that could be prettied up, but just posting that just to let them know they're in the right place, that they're welcome, our doors are open, might just be an extra, step in saying, hey, we do want you here.
Thank you, Anastasia. Does anybody have anything else to add before we get everybody to a place where we can wind up for today? I know a lot of us have parent-teacher conferences tonight. So like I said, I'm going to post this on the platform. Feel free to add to the questions that we didn't get to, or if you think of something that you might want to share with others. Way down here on the end, we have a place that you can add links. I'm going to add a link to Remind. It's how I get information out to my families. And Anastasia's really cool EL profile is there. And then this takeaway tile. I'm going to go back to this.
Yeah, and we have another, example of Padlet as a tool to use to collaborate with other teachers or with your students. So that was fun using Padlet.
I'm glad you liked it. I used it in a different format in another group, and I thought it was a really neat way to get conversations started.
So our takeaways from this conversation, we hope, is, thinking of a way that you can connect with your ELs this week or after spring break. Again, looking at that profile, how can I personally make a connection and relationship with this student where I can start building trust? And they're like, oh, they kind of want to get to know me. I can talk to this teacher. They're a safe place. So thinking of just how can you connect? And then how can you communicate with parents and connect with parents? So what is something new that you can try that you have not, maybe something you learned today, or that you might see on the Padlet or on the platform? Is there something new that you can try?
And then we want to invite you to join us April 8th. This should be a neat one, I think. And it's kind of a continuation of this discussion. Jana kind of talked about this in her experience teaching high school, and like connecting with those students and setting forth kind of expectations for parents. But the question is, do your teachers, parents, and community see the responsibility for connecting as a shared responsibility? I'm the only EL teacher at my site. A lot of it I take on myself because I'm kind of possessive of my students. Like, these are my babies, and but who's responsible for these students and their learning and connecting with them and connecting with their families? So that's just something to kind of start to think about. That was question 9 on our list, by the way. So it is on the Padlet. If you want to add some thoughts to it now, you can, or later on spring break when you're sipping frosty beverages out in the sunshine, you can start thinking about these things. And we really hope that you will all join us again on April 8th. And we really thank you for your time. Girls, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I want to thank you, Ellen and Anastasia and Jana, for being on today. And I'm just thinking about that frosty beverage in the sunshine, but I'm really thinking about this question and about the shared responsibility. And when we share responsibility, we also get to share in the benefits of that connection and that communication and engagement. And I really appreciate you all making time to share benefits, responsibilities, and practices with this group. It will only grow. Thank you so very, very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jana.
Jana, we're really glad you were with us. Thank you.
Can you
Bye.
guys stay on for just like 2 seconds, team?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so how many people? I couldn't tell how many people we had.
Is
We
there a
had-
way to stop recording
Yes. And I can
or?
stop sharing.